Hi, I'm Jordan, author and founder of Love Like Flannel. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this video, which is the partner video for part 3, titled Killing Racism. If you have not yet checked out parts 1 and 2 or read part 3 prior to doing this, I would definitely recommend you do so, as the things I talk about here will go a little bit deeper and build off of that written content. But I did want to make a couple comments here because I believe that if we are really going to see the death of racism, we are going to have to actively be killing racism and prejudice mindsets. And so how do we do that? How do we break those things down, those walls, those barriers that have caused so many issues? I believe that it's possible, and I also believe the solutions are practical, that we can begin to implement some things into our daily life that help us see the death of racism come about. And one of those things is to educate ourselves. We do not have the ability to claim ignorance anymore. We have a wealth of knowledge through written material. We have tons of information at our fingertips through the internet, which I do always caution there. Fact check, make sure the things that you're reading are accurate, because not everything on the internet is 100% true, but nonetheless, there is some good information there. We have things like podcasts. We have a lot at our disposal that we no longer can claim ignorance in things dealing with race, different cultures that are around us. And I think it's important that we take up the responsibility to educate ourselves. I personally enjoy reading books and looking into Black history. It's important to me on 2 levels. One, because if I am going to be able to help break down barriers that racism has built and destroy it, I need to better understand what it's like to be Black in our American culture, where I'm at, and or globally. I do not fully understand, and I can never fully understand what it's like to be a Black man because I'm white, or a Black woman for that matter. But I do feel that it's possible for me to grow and to build my knowledge and to be able to better see the world through eyes that are different than my own. And I can do that through books, conversations with friends of mine who are Black, and things like that. It's also important to me because my oldest son, who I've mentioned in some other videos, is Black, and so this is his history, and I want to be able to talk about Black heroes that he can look up to as he grows up. I want to be able to share his history with him and come alongside him and help him walk through some potential issues he might face as much as I can. And so my library is growing. He's also going to be able to use my library, obviously, as he grows up, and so that's important to me. So I think this idea of educating ourselves is something that's very vital when it comes to actively being able to kill racism. Another thing that I think is very important is the idea of being able to cultivate relationships. I talked about in the last video how important it is to cultivate relationships with people that come from a different race or a different cultural background than our own. And I've been very diligent in trying to do that to the best of my ability. I'm naturally introverted, so this is probably the most challenging one for me, but I think it's also extremely vital. And so I've been very intentional about cultivating relationships. And in fact, one of my best friends is Black, and he has just helped me become the man that I am today. He knows more about me than anybody else other than my wife. And so that relationship has proved to be just amazing in my life. It's reaping benefits in my family and how I raise my boys. But if we want to see racism die, it's going to happen in the context of relationships. And so we have to be diligent in cultivating those things and building those relationships in our life and working together to see the community around us grow in terms of how we treat one another. The third thing I'd mentioned in this portion of the treatise was to get involved. I think that one of the biggest ways that we can break down racial barriers is to get involved in projects or areas of our communities where we work alongside those that are different than us. Growing up in the country, I did not have a lot of exposure to the inner city. So as I grew up, as I went to college, got married, I have been intentional about trying to partner with different organizations or projects or things in the inner city, so I have that exposure to just what life in the inner city is like, but also so I'm rubbing shoulders with those that's their world. That's where they live day in and day out, and I can see how I can partner with them or help them or serve them, or how they can help me to grow. I've gone to Africa and served families and children there. So I don't necessarily think you have to travel overseas to see this happen, but there are numerous ways that we can get involved with things that are actively maybe in the process of trying to overcome racism or the effects of racism in communities, or there's just things we can do to serve those that are in a community that needs our help or needs a helping hand or something like that. And so I think getting involved in those practical ways is another great way that we can begin to build bridges, build relationships, and foster healthy growth in our communities. And finally, I think most importantly is to use your influence. I really believe that everybody has a voice and that everybody's voice matters. And we all have a sphere of influence. Some of ours might be greater than others. Your platform might be greater, or it might be as simple as trying to correct some mindsets within our own families. But regardless of where it is, we have a sphere of influence and we have a voice that can make a difference. And I would encourage everybody to find out how you can use your voice to break down racist walls, to correct prejudicial mindsets, to stand with those that are being affected by injustice, to come alongside and lift up those that maybe don't have or don't feel like they have a platform for themselves. That's one reason why I started Love Like Flannel. I love writing, regardless of whether that's a piece like this or poetry or doing a spoken word or whatever. And I feel like I'm pretty gifted at it. I hope that people who check out Love Like Flannel enjoy it and it speaks to their life in some way, shape, or form. But that's one reason why I started it. I feel like it was a way for me to utilize my voice in some way to hopefully impact the lives of other people. And so when you talk about actively killing racism, it's going to take more than just one person. It's going to take all of us. And we don't need national platforms necessarily to see that change happen. Just use your voice where you're at and start actively fighting against racism and prejudiced ideals that are out there within the spheres of your influence. That's really how we're going to start to see things change. If you have kids, use your voice in a proactive way to speak truth and pour into your kids so that they're raised up hating racism. All of us have a place that our voice can make a difference, and we need to utilize that and leverage that. And as we close here, with this being the last piece that I'm releasing, the last video that I'm doing in this regard, I do want to let you know that coming up here soon, I am going to be releasing the treatise that I wrote, The Death of Racism, in its entirety. And I'll have that on Love Like Flannel so it can be downloaded free, just like everything else. And I would encourage you to just share that with other people. If you really have a passion for this, or maybe as you've read this, it's caused you to feel excited about the role that you can have in killing racism, I would encourage you to share it. Comment in the section something like, I will commit to killing racism, or something like that, and share this with other people. I really believe that together we can see a better future. We can see the death of racism take place, and that the generations coming behind us can benefit from our dedication to committing to the work that it takes to building quality relationships, to putting dignity into those relationships, to treating one another like we should, with more love and with more unity, with more respect, and that we can see a healthier future, and that we can see the death of racism happen. And so thank you so much for checking out the release of this stuff the last couple weeks. I hope that you're enjoying Love Like Flannel. Thank you so much for checking it out. It means the world to me that you take time to engage with the content that I put there. If you'd love to get in touch with me or anything, please feel free to do that. I love carrying on the conversation and building relationships. But thank you so much for checking this out, and stay tuned for the release of the treatise as a whole, so that you can either have it for yourself and or share it for others. Thanks again for being a part of Love Like Flannel. I appreciate it.